Hi, Gagan. Welcome to Gravitas Wins Conversations, and thank you for being here.
Hi, Joseph. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. It's always nice and pleasure to talk to you, Gagan. So I really expect a really good conversation today.
Sure on.
Okay. So what do you do? I know you are into sales, but can you explain what's your background, how you got started in sales, and what are you doing now in sales?
Sure. Um, so it is a little surprising to tell you that I am a chemical engineer. I completed engineering in the year 2004, and then I got selected. If you remember, 2004 2005, Rinbaxi plant was in Mohali. So I was taken in as one of the design engineers for them. And to my utter shock, once I joined Renbaxi, it was all papers, designs of equipments which are in the plant, and how they bring those equipments from paper to reality. And that was my job profile, to assist them. I was quite uncomfortable doing that from 9 to 6 p.m., just sitting and reading those designs and then implementing in the field. I went to Ranbaxy for 15 days, and on 16th, I ran to my college. There, I met my professor who was close to me, and I told him I did join Ranbaxy, but I have made a mistake. What should I do? And more than anyone else, it was my mother who's tensed up. And she is telling me that you are good for nothing. At this juncture, you have got a good job in Rinbaxi. You should take it. But somehow I was not able to stay in that organization. So my professor came to my help and said, "Okay, Gagan, call your mother one day." Next day, I requested my mom to come and meet him. He said that your son is a right brained fellow. So don't put him in some kind of desk job. Better he should go out and do sales, business development, marketing. Ask him to go and do MBA. And that's how I dived into a B school and then started my sales journey.
Wow, I didn't know this particular journey, and it is interesting that professors, not only in during college that they play this role, but even afterwards they have become mentors, and then they also shaped your thinking and navigate helped you navigate towards the things that you like to do. So is your professor right? Like, I mean, do you enjoy sales now, enjoy the business development and all the other activities?
Absolutely. I relish going out, meeting new people, though there is a lot of pressure. But I think so, over a period of time, I have evolved and try to overcome that pressure by visiting people, by speaking to them, by understanding what is their need, and having a good time. At the end of the day, if I'm enjoying my job, I will relish it and I will enjoy it.
You are very well said, Gagan, on that. End of day, we should enjoy what we are doing. When we go to bed, we should say, okay, I had a good time today. I did
Absolutely.
my best, and I have done good for the organization. I have done good for myself. I've done good for the family. So it's a good day. So I think in that particular aspect, you seem to have more good days in sales that you are doing.
Yeah.
Good, good. Uh, I know now you are on NGO sales. Have you always been on NGO sales, or you've been on profit sales and all the other things as well?
I have been in sales and business development for profit organization, but this is the
Hmm.
first organization where I am working for a social enterprise come an NGO. And here we help people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, low income individuals with eyeglasses.
This is a very interesting profile. and at least I find it to be a very interesting profile. But how long you've been in the for-profit sales?
So for profit, I was close to 10 years, and then I segued into non-profit.
So, okay. So when you say you have been in the profit organizations, for-profit organizations, and now in the social sector sales, how do you find the difference? Is it the same sales job, or in some way it is different?
I would say, in principle, it is sales job. But if you are working in a sales job, that also for a social enterprise which help poor people, there is a sense of satisfaction at the end of the day. That
Hmm.
you have been into sales, but and you are paid for being in sales for some good work, and good work is helping your brethren who are not so privileged and are from the disadvantaged sector of India, and trying to give them some hope with these development services.
That's a very valid point. That, I mean, that's good. But help me understand, why would a NGO need a sales team?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was also not aware till the time that I was in for profit. And once I came into non-profit, I realized that there are a lot of corporates. As per the Indian government mandate, corporates need to put some percentage of their money into corporate social responsibility activities. Let's say healthcare, education, environment, and organization like mine come into play there because we have expertise in one or two thematic areas, and we can help
Hmm.
them implement on the ground. That's how, basically, if you talk about IT industry, just taking an analogy from there, a lot of companies in US outsource to companies in
Hmm.
India. Because one is that you have labor is at an economical price you get, and also these companies have expertise in that particular aspect. Similarly, with Vision Spring, which is a US based social enterprise where I work currently, they have an expertise in eye screening, and they have been doing, in India specifically, they have been doing eye screening for more than 10 years. And we help big corporates like Bajaj, like ICICI, or for that matter, oil company Shell, to implement their programs or projects on field. So that's why sales team
Oh.
is required, because these corporates and their plants are spread all across India, and they want to do a lot of thematic work. I'll give you an example. Let's say Shell India. Shell India
Hmm.
has a lot of transport workers, and they want to make sure that all the transport workers
Hmm.
should have good eyesight. That's where Vision Spring comes into foray, and we help them uh, by providing them subsidized eyeglasses to their truck drivers so that they can make Indian roads safe. Similarly, in education and healthcare, we tie up with various multinational and Indian organizations.
That's interesting. So when you say sales, do you approach the corporates, something like whatever that you mentioned, Bajaj and others? Do you approach them? So your sales is towards them, or your sales is towards consumers,
Yeah.
the
So
workers themselves who need eyeglasses?
Yeah. So in NGO or social enterprise sector, I have two customers. One of my customer is these corporates whom I approach and ask them to fund us for the programs for these
Hmm.
beneficiaries. And our second customers
Hmm.
are beneficiaries, who are the people who get these eyeglasses, and they have seen their productivity improve, educational outcomes in schools spiral upwards. So those are the two different distinction, and as a salespeople, we need to make both of them happy.
So do you? I mean, you, Gagan, do you talk to both constituents, or you focus on corporates and somebody else focuses on the workers and others?
Yeah. So my focus is on corporates, but there is another execution team and program team in Vision Spring who
Hmm.
helps the people at the bottom of the pyramid or beneficiaries.
Good, good. Uh, so, okay, so now I understand what is this NGO and NGO sales is. But other than that, are there any big differences between for profit, non profit, and NGO? Are there any differences in these three categories of organizations?
Sure. Broadly, I would bucket into two different sets. One is profit, and other is non-profit organizations and social enterprise. So when I say profit-making organization,
Hmm.
I remember we read in economics class that the purpose of business is profit maximization or increasing the shareholders' value. So that is the primary objective of a profit-making organization. But when we come to
Hmm.
non-profit organization, or I would say social enterprise, their main objective of purpose is to mitigate social and environmental issues, and more
Mm.
importantly, try to create a social impact which includes both length and breadth of impact, which means length means that how many people I have given eyeglasses to. That means how many people have been
Mhm.
covered by my program area. And breadth is what kind of impact my organize with the eyeglasses there has their productivity improved, have their educational outcomes gone up, have the road accidents decreased. So this is the main difference between a profit making organization and non-profit plus a social enterprise.
the Now let's talk about the metrics as a salesperson that you would track for a profit organization. I can understand maybe number of leads that you brought in, the profit that you brought in every lead, and so on and so forth. How will you what are the metrics that you would look at from a sales, or a sales from a social sector organization?
So the metrics are absolutely same, which means number of leads,
Hmm.
number of opportunities, how healthy is my funnel, how many proposals are in my funnel, how many conversions I have had last month. But the most important metric for the organization is the social impact. Why I keep on emphasizing the social impact? Because during our conversation, how a salesperson in a non-profit organization or social enterprise is motivated to go out and find more partners. The inherent belief in all of us is that the
Hmm.
more the partners who work with us, the more beneficiaries we are able to reach. So we work with that kind of mindset. We don't work with the mindset of getting more revenues, profit generation. So our destination is different from the destination of, let's say, a profit making organization. Our destination is the impact, because all the salespeople, uh, it is pertinent that they go and meet the people who get these eyeglasses. They go and attend the camps. They see how the eye screenings takes place. What are the benefits that people who get eyeglasses get? So, taking all those things into consideration, uh, the sales metrics remains same, but the destination is different.
Hmm. And so there is no revenue per se, right? Like, I mean, that's not in your metric. So how does your compensation look like? Because what I understand is most of the sales compensations are all tied to the revenue or to the profit. So how will your compensation look like? When I say that, I'm only talking about, I mean, not the absolute numbers that I'm talking about, but how does it determine, and how is it, I mean, increase, and so on and so forth.
My review takes place based on number of partners that we have got, uh, the revenue that has been generated, just like a profit making organization. There's no difference.
Mm-hmm. Ah, okay. So because you are in a corporate facing sales.
Absolutely, yeah.
So say for example, I mean, I know you are not really facing the consumer based, the workers to whom you are giving the eyeglasses. Will the metrics for them be any different?
So the people in our organization, we have salespeople who take care of corporates only. So from corporates we get
Okay.
funding, and based on these funding, we help the people.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now let's talk about sales as such. I mean, not just the social sector sales. Uh, what skills should a salesperson have to excel in sales?
I would say, are you married, Joseph?
Yes.
Great. I am also married. And let me give you an analogy of before marriage and after marriage. Uh,
Okay.
my wife keeps on telling me these days that before marriage, I was a very good listener. I was empathetic towards her. I not only used to understand her explicit needs, but also implied needs. Similarly, in sales, these three things are very important. One is being empathetic to the customer. Second is authentic listening. Authentic listening means listening in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
last but never the least, making sure that client, you are not there to sell anything. You are, your first intention is to understand what client needs, and then
Mm-hmm.
only you would be able to sell something. Just like a normal sales, uh, in NGO sales also, or a social enterprise also, the skills are the same. That is, you need to have some fundamentals very clear. I remember when I started my sales journey, I used to speak a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
there were repercussions of that. I for
Mm.
close to 2.5 years, I was not able to understand why I am not able to make sales. Then one day I went to one of my senior colleagues who was quite amicable with me, and he told me is you should listen more than talk. So
Mm.
that has helped me evolve over a period of time as a salesperson. So I would say listening and being empathetic and understanding the needs of the customer, so that you can align what you have or what products and services you are to those needs. So these are the three prerequisites I think every salesperson should have. And just like marriage teaches you that these three things are essential even after you get married, similarly in sales, we have to carry it as long as we are in sales.
So are you telling me the husbands do a better sales job?
I would say yes. Husbands do a better sales job because over a period of time, their listening skills have improved. They have become more empathetic towards their better half, and also they know inside out about their wives.
Good. Let's see. I will go and talk to my wife. Probably I should try out some jobs in sales probably now.
Uh,
Good. So you talked about empathetic. I mean empathy, authentic listening, and understanding the customer needs. And when we are talking about customer needs, and since you have been in profit, non-profit, sorry, the sales sector, and when you are talking about in the social sector, you would be meeting very different types of customers. uh, Somebody might be in auto industry, somebody might be in another industry, and their needs might be different, why they want to support a social sector and all of those kinds of stuff. And I am assuming you will have to have knowledge, a wide knowledge on these type of clients that whom you are meeting? Is first of all, the question is that the case? Do you need to have this kind of a knowledge, or can you go with some uh, generic knowledge and kind of wishy-wash that particular conversation, or do you need to have a deep knowledge about that particular domain? And if so, how will you develop that over a period of time?
Yeah. So industry specific knowledge is a prerequisite. Besides industry knowledge, I would also say the second thing which a salesperson should know is about their products and services. If these two components the salesperson has a wide knowledge about, he can go and speak with the client. And yes, over a period of time, when you read about, let's say, research papers, keep a tab on what is going on in news, attend various conferences of CII and other platforms, you ingrain these knowledge, and then they become an interesting and insightful topics of discussion with the client.
Good. So so you read now all of this, you get it from books or reading newspapers? How do you keep on top of all of these things?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different forums. One, as you rightly said, reading dailies is one way that I keep abreast of all the things. Then there are some sector specific magazines, let's say automotive sector,
Hmm.
healthcare, pharma. So they are very targeted, and here you also come to know what are some of the new investments coming in a particular sector. uh, Companies, then let's say presently
Hmm.
I'm in a CSR or an NGO side of things. So there are a lot of online platforms, like NGO Box is one organization which keeps on coming up with updated information on what various corporates are doing. So it is imperative. And I would also add that with recent COVID, a lot of these organizations have started holding virtual programs where we were going and attending physical conferences.
Hmm.
Now, at a click of a button, I can attend many conferences sitting at my home. So there is a lot of value addition that is going on. And as a salesperson, we need to ingrain these value additions in us, so that we are updated and look to be people of gravitas when we go and speak with the client.
Wonderful. So you talked about listening as one aspect, and then now you are talking about reading as another aspect for you to do your sales job better. In that particular line of thought, what are the habits that help you to be a better salesperson on a daily basis?
I would say the first habit is, okay, let me first give you a study. McKinsey recently did one study where they found out that
Mhm.
what is one trait that differentiates top salespeople from the less rest of the lot. And that one trait is being organized. So what
Mm.
I try to do is I try to have a routine. Let's say I have to
Mhm.
make these
Mhm.
many calls. I have to set up a joint meetings with my team, go out and meet them on a weekly basis. So have these many proposals ready by this time. So this is something, and I also attended your session, Joseph Gravitas, which
Mhm.
re-emphasized having a system in place which will give you more structure. So that has also helped me a lot in making things more systematic. Besides this, going a little bit towards the philosophical side of things, I also keep my thoughts in check by doing a lot of visualization and affirmation activities early morning. That has
Mm.
helped me keeping a check on my emotions. And also, sales is something just like any other activity, which happens gradually. You improve
Mm.
incrementally. That's why
Mm.
your routine should have activities which help you take those tiny steps. But from your end, you need to take them on a daily basis. So this is something that helps me to structure my day. And rather than thinking about the final destination, I think about daily activities. And at the end of the day, when I go back to sleep, if I have completed those daily activities, I'm quite happy that job is done for the day. Now let us go to the next day. So that is how I
That's what
put things into perspective.
that's a pretty good one. So what you are saying is approach it more as a system in a structured way rather than focusing on the outcome or focusing on the goals that you need to achieve. But I approach it as a structured way. So which is good. Like I mean, which is probably how everybody will have to do their job on a day-to-day basis. Uh, what you like? Say for example, you are in sales. You have always been on sales. Now say for example me in delivery, maybe somebody else is in marketing, somebody else is in another domain. What one aspect of sales, if others would understand, uh, what would that aspect be? Like I mean, it will make their life easier, their job better, and also sales job better and easier. What would that be?
I would say, as Stephen Covey had put it very rightly in the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, that seek first to understand before being understood.
Hmm.
So, in other words,
Hmm.
listening intently to what others are saying. As I mentioned in my formative days in sales, I was not able to excel in what I am doing because of tendency of speaking a lot. So later I learned why God gave us two ears and one mouth.
Very good, very good. So what you are saying is, from what you are describing, sales seems to be a life skill, or rather let me put it this way: the fundamental skills that you need to thrive in sales are the same skills that are needed to thrive in life as well. Can I put it that way?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay, so probably I should learn some of the sales skills as well. Good, good. So whether it is in your sales or in general aspect, what are the books that shifted your thinking, and can you name some of them and how they shifted your thinking?
Yeah, one book made an indelible mark on me is The Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a fantastic book. There are so many takeaways, but one takeaway was quite evident for me, which I was also able to replicate in sales life, that small things done over a period of time would give an exponential result.
Correct, correct. Yeah, yeah. So, can you give me an example for that? Like, I mean, the small thing done repeatedly will give an exponential life. That sounds nice, and I can imagine logically. I can imagine that to be true. But can you give me an example which you have put into practice and which have either given you exponential returns or
Yeah.
which is starting to give that exponential returns?
Yeah, I would say I heard Joseph Hughes speaking once that quality of the life depends upon how many uncomfortable conversations we have. So in
Yeah.
sales life, uncomfortable conversation is cold calling. A lot of
Yeah.
salespeople hesitate to pick up a phone and call unknown people, which is all right. We
Hmm.
do that. But over a period of time, when you do it on a daily basis, I'll give you an example. Uh, I used to call 20 people daily, irrespective of their response. When I did this over a period of months, my pipeline was quite healthy, and I was able to
Mm.
take many of these leads into opportunities, and from opportunities, I was able to convert them. So this is what this book also taught me, that small things, like if I give a call to 20 people, I as I mentioned, I also have a routine. So let's say from 10 to 11 in the morning, I'll call these 20 people, and I will take note of them. But there is a caveat here, Joseph. Sales is a
Hmm.
rejection dense job. So
Mm.
a salesperson who can embrace rejection can propel forward. So I remember I used to tell myself that with every no that I'll get on phone, I'll call five more people, and I'll call them with more energy and enthusiasm. And because of that, I started getting results.
Wonderful. So this is something that is hard for me to understand, and either as purely as a techie guy sitting in front of the computer, or as even as a human. You said, okay, I get a rejection. It's a rejection job, and I can understand that you're calling 20 people. Not all of them are going to pick up the call, return the call, or agree to whatever that you are asking them for favor or selling. How do you handle those rejection? What are the habits that you have, or what are the mindsets that you put in to handle those rejections?
So the phone is my closest ally that I need to keep in mind. And
Mhm.
when I get those rejections, I don't need to take it to heart. That's where empathy comes into play, right? So, see,
Mm.
let's say first time I call 20 people, all of them reject me. But I know if I continue calling next
Mhm.
day, then next day, there will be few conversions. And that is what happened in reality. Not taking anything to heart, because
Mm.
nothing is personal here. Everybody is busy these days. And also continuing doing it in a sustained manner.
Very good, very good. So that's one, you being as a salesperson, and you are calling a lot of people in cold calling, and some of them are answering, some of them are not answering. But has it changed your attitude towards people cold calling you?
Absolutely, it has. You won't believe it. Uh, in the office, I get so many calls, and I'm so polite
Uh-huh.
and gentle with them that my colleagues ask that how much patience you have with these people. I say I'm into sales. These people are my counterparts, are my colleagues. So there is a
Mm.
kind of camaraderie. Though I have not seen them in real, I have heard them. So I give them full honor and dignity whenever they call me.
Good, good. Like, I mean, it all, what goes around comes around, right? So if
Absolutely.
you are nice to these people, probably the people whom you are calling will be nice to you. But from everything that you say, you seem to be a very patient, a nice guy, which I know you are. I know you for some time. But do you ever get angry about these calls, rejections, or somebody is not getting what you are what you are trying to say? And how do you deal with those emotions, negative emotions?
Yeah. So here where books are my solace.
Okay.
I recently read one book, The Obstacle is the Way. So I
Hmm.
continue bombarding myself with these books. Uh, Also, I keep on listening. As a people, we travel a lot, so we listen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I keep on listening to
Hmm.
Audible, a lot of different tapes related to sales from various think tanks, from various leaders. So all those people have gone through the same kind of ups and downs, and when
Hmm.
they tell you something, you can learn from that. So learning from other people failure, and then failing fast and coming back. So I think so that helps me a lot. That helps me keep a sense of things, that nothing is personal here. I have, by choice, I have taken a sales job, and this is by default I'll get this. So there is no point in getting upset over this. This is something that is not in my control. But what is in my control is picking up a call and calling the next person. So that is what I do.
So when you said about the three characteristics of the salesperson, one of them being empathetic, you're also saying you need to be empathetic towards yourself also, not just with the others, but also with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be empathetic with yourself, because when you get so much garbage from outside, you have to, a lot of self-talk need to go, a lot of chatter with the mind. Again, and that's where visualization and affirmations come into play.
Hmm. Hmm. Good, good. So you talked about I mean, you used to travel a lot for sales, and you used to listen. Now, how has COVID affected sales, especially from, I mean, maybe from your point of view, how has COVID affected sales?
I would say it has had a big dent on sales. A reason being because now, in my kind of sales, we need to go and meet people face to face.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
talked about empathy. So until unless I see people's gestures, I won't be able to maybe guesstimate what is their thinking behind it. Speaking on phone or virtually meeting, and also you would acknowledge the fact that in India, a lot of, since my target customers are, let's say, people in production, people in quality, or people in CSRs who are not very fluent using email, using virtuals. So first and foremost, they need to come, or I need to help them to get acquainted to virtual kind of a sales meeting. So that's why it is taking time, but I'm quite confident that over a period of time, this will be the new normal.
New normal. Okay. Okay. That's good. So let's move on to some of the non functional questions. What's the kindest thing someone has done for you?
There are so many kindest things that people have done for me. It is very difficult to pick up one or two, but there is something that is fresh in my mind, and that happened recently when I was in Chandigarh. Uh, I have Skoda Fabia. It is a German
Hmm.
vehicle and considered to be very rugged and strong vehicle. But the biggest challenge with Skoda is that the after sales service is very high, and also you don't get spare parts. So from last 2 years, I'm struggling to get some spare parts for my car. I have gone
Hmm.
to Skoda service center, met the experts there. They were not able to find a solution. Then I have also gone to a local street side mechanic and asked for his help. But all is futile. I was not able to make any headway in that. Then once I came here, I met one of my acquaintance, and he told me, "Okay, let me help you out. Give me your car for 2 days." I gave him for 2 days, and on third day, I get this car which is fully repaired, and the part which was missing has been put in place, and that person doesn't expect anything in return. Can you believe it? So I was shell shocked. I said, I am looking
Wow.
out for this thing for last 2 years, and you have got these things for me, and now you don't want uh, whatever basics that you have given me, basic price for that, and you say now this is a seva from my end to my friend Gagan.
Wow.
So that is the kindest thing that has happened recently with me, and these kind of things keep on happening with
Very
me.
true.
That's why my perspective of life is that most of the people are good. They are inherently, they have positive attitude, they want to help others, and they want to live a life where everyone are brothers and sisters.
Thanks for sharing that, Gagan. Uh, I believe life is an echo. So whatever that you say is what life returns back. So in that particular sense, if you look at it as everybody is good, everybody wants to thrive, everybody wants to love each other, everybody wants to help each other, and yeah, there is always some outliers, but then this is how the general population is, then probably it echoes back the same thing to you, and then you shared an example, incident, anecdote, which proves that particular point. So which is nice. Thanks for sharing that,
Sure.
Gagan. uh, Now, what's the one activity you talked about? A lot of habits that you have to have because being in sales and all of those things. What is one activity that you love doing every day, no matter what? Every day you do this.
One activity is reading. I just love reading. And the days that I'm
Okay.
not able to read, I really feel guilty. And there is a sense of shame that why I haven't read. I read books, I read newspapers. That is one thing that I do diligently and religiously.
Wonderful, wonderful. Gagan, you said reading is something that you love and you do this every day, and I also know that you read a lot of books. Is that a characteristics of a salesperson, or you are an outlier of that?
No, no, it is definitely a characteristic of a salesperson. Salesperson needs to read a lot. Whatever comes in his or her way, they need to read, they need to know about it. It is one of the essential characteristics of a salesperson.
Wow. Okay. So good, good. Thanks. You have been in Gravitas Wins course, and also you are in Gravitas Wins community, and you play an active role as well. You are in the clubhouse discussions and all of that. What did you enjoy about the course, and what do you enjoy about being in the community?
I would say what I enjoyed most about the course is the flywheel aspect of the course, wherein there is a model wherein you put emphasis, put force behind one aspect in your life, and that will have a spiraling effect to other aspects of your life. So that is one thing that I really like.
Hmm.
And the second thing I would say is, Joseph, you, because you practice what you preach. A lot of sales trainers, lot of trainers these days don't implement what they say. But in your case, since I follow you regularly, whether on LinkedIn, Twitter, uh, the Gravitas Wins course, or our book club, I have seen you execute those activities, and you go further by asking us to make you accountable for those things. So I don't know how many coaches or gurus we have today who are so humble, yet they have treasure of knowledge to share, and you share it openly. And third thing I would say is, when people come and share their learnings, uh, that you grab so much out of that, those learnings from other people's, you are able to resonate in what you are saying. Let's say if you are having a problem in some aspect of your life, and you see other people also having, so there is a sense of connect. And then when they also give
Hmm.
you solutions to them, you say yes, you can also apply it to your life. So I would say those are the three big advantages that I see of Gravitas Wins.
Thank you, thank you, thanks a lot, Gagan, on that. Uh, what's your definition of a good life?
My definition of good life is that uh, I need to endeavor always towards pursuit of happiness, uh, which
Hmm.
simply means that if I, on a daily basis, I have a destination or I have a goal to reach, and on daily basis I take steps towards those goals, that is the happy life
Mm.
for me. That makes me happy.
Mm. Okay, so what you are saying is the daily steps, that's what defines whether you are having a happy life or not.
Absolutely.
uh, and probably because you take those daily steps, probably you will reach the outcome that you are anticipating. However, that does not determine, the outcome does not determine your happiness, but the daily steps are the ones that determines your happy life.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. Gagan, thank you very much for sharing whatever your journey on sales and what you have learned in sales, and then the three aspects that you talked about, which is relevant for life as well as sales, and more importantly for married life. So I'm really really thankful for sharing your knowledge with us, Gagan. Thank you very much.
I appreciate, Joseph, you having me in today's session. It was pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Where can people find you online, Gagan?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and I'm also present on Twitter. But LinkedIn is one place where I keep on putting my posts.
Wonderful. So I will link to your LinkedIn on the show notes so that people they can connect with you as well. If I may ask you this question, can you explain me what your Twitter handle is?
My Twitter handle is orange at the rate orange Gagan. No, sorry, at the rate orange
Or
turban. Yeah. So there is no
what does it
significance.
mean? I mean,
There is no significance behind that. It just came to my mind because when Twitter came up, Twitter was something that I felt is little different, little creative. So I said my name should also be little creative. So that time I was in Punjab and I was seeing a lot of orange turbans all around. I also bought a couple of orange turbans and I said then this would be my Twitter handle.
very good, very good. Thank you very much, Gagan. I really appreciate you sharing all of these knowledges. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Joseph.
it.